does it mean parable? I've heard it means earthly story with a heavenly meaning. I learned a long time ago, John Barnes taught at a church in Springs, and a parable, it means an earthly story, a story that is simple, like Mickey Mouse, a Disney story, Snow White and Seven Dwarfs. That's any story. No, it's not just that. It's an earthly story to help us understand more about heaven. Again, you might say, I can't understand heaven. Let me give you an example. Now I understand. That's what it means, parable. That's the sign for it, parable. Parable, a story. See, people don't use that sign today. People don't even use it a lot today. A Chinese parable would be like a story that was related to the culture of China. You might say, I don't understand what they're saying, but if you use a parable, you can understand what the point is. The Bible has parables in it. Jesus was trying many times to give them people a hard saying, so he would use, instead of doing that, he would use the parable. In verse 2, it says this, and great multitudes were gathered together with him, so that he went into a ship and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. There were many people that were surrounding Jesus. It was a crowd. So Jesus went out into a ship, got into a ship, and he pulled out into the sea a little bit, and everybody else was on land. So and with this, he taught them, and everybody heard him. In the New Testament, the word parable, it relates to Jesus' stories. We have another word, we have parable in the Old Testament. In Exodus, we have there's other parables. The story of something. In the New Testament, all the parables are related to Jesus. The parables of Jesus. You have to understand, a parable, did it really happen? No. Jesus used it as an example to get several points across. If you read the New Testament and you see Jesus talking about it really did, some things that did happen, and there are things that are not, that are said, that are not really happening. It's just a story. So you can't read, you have to be careful what you read. But in some of the New Testament, you see a real person. Good Samaritan. There's the parable of the Good Samaritan. What does it mean? Well, you should love other people no matter who they are. No matter their country, ethnics, what their beliefs. What's the story about? A priest and a Levite. They saw a man, they wouldn't refuse to help him. And a Samaritan came by later and helped the man. Is it a true story? No. The man, a man was talking to Jesus about loving the neighbor, thy neighbor as thyself. So Jesus gave a story about what happened, or to illustrate his point. And Jesus telling a story, and he said that a certain man, he didn't say who he was, but he said that 3 people came by, a priest, a Levite, and a Samaritan. On the other hand, we have a story about a rich man and Lazarus. The rich man, he didn't care about Lazarus. Lazarus was very poor, and he didn't care about this poor beggar, so he went to hell. And Lazarus, he woke up when he died, he went to be with Abraham. That's a true story. It's no parable. It really did happen. The rich man really did go to hell. People say, Jesus, he was always, he made up all these stories. No, not all these stories are made up. There are real stories too. The parables of Jesus is a story. It's a picture to help us understand something about heaven. And it gives us an example. Many times we have children and we try to explain something another person said. So, like politics, for example, it's hard to explain to little children. So, what we got to look at what they experience, what's happening in their life, and give them an idea. Like, give them an example of a game, or so they understand. They might not understand the real thing, like the politics situation and all that, but they can understand a game. We play a game like checkers or something, and you use the principles of the game to help them understand like what's going on in politics. There's a Christian movie how people read. It depends on what they read. The Passion of the Christ, Ten Commandments, they're based on a true story. That really did happen. So they tried to make a movie that was similar to it. Some of these stories in the Bible, they're not true. They're not real life. Any other examples of the Good Samaritan, other than the Good Samaritan? A lost son, prodigal son. The father had 2 sons, and that's a parable. It's not a true story. You might think it is, but it's really not. It talks about the prodigal son. One son went away, the other stayed. Any other examples? There's a famous story about Jesus sowing seed. Farmers sowing seed. Some went on good ground, some on stony ground, some were eaten by the birds. That's another parable. I remember when I was maybe 15 years old, John Barr or somebody taught me in Sunday school, teens class. He wanted him to teach, so I found a parable. And I picked the parable of the vineyard. You ever heard the story of the parable of the vineyard? Yeah, I've heard the story. It talks about somebody building a stone ground, and the farmer would come out about and prune the branches. That's in John chapter 15. That's a different story. The vineyard. That's a different story. Jesus did talk about that. The parable of the vineyard. I remember about a man, he had a field, a vineyard, and he gave it to other men. But the other men, after a while, they wanted to keep the land. They didn't want to give it back. That's the story that a man went and built a vineyard, and he went on a long trip, and he gave several men to take care of it. And when he came back, you may ask, what's the point? Hold on, I'll tell you a story in 1 or 2 weeks. What's the point? Why don't you build a vineyard? It's a picture of heaven. Now you might understand it. We'll use different different parables. This parable, God is trying to help us understand His way. He's using the Proverbs. He's using Psalms. History. Letters. Parables. And parables. And prophecy. In Genesis through Revelation, there's several points that are not always similar. There's different things going on. Like, different times it talks about history, other times it talks about Psalms and songs, other times it talks about prophecy, about wisdom. These are prophecy. God is talking about His judgment. You might wonder why. There's different perspectives. And letters. If you look in the New Testament, it talks about the letters, the epistles. Same is with parables. It's in the New Testament. It talks about parables. It's healthy. These parables are written so that we can understand more about God. That's the important thing. In the New Testament, some of we have counted that there are like 46 parables. Some say less, some say more. It really doesn't matter. But there are about 46 parables. Jesus was telling these different parables. He was trying to explain something to them about heaven. I remember I took a history class here, how to teach history. Mrs. Schaefer was teaching me, was telling us that you have to get something, you know something, then you build a bridge to this place where you don't know. You can't just put everything in the unknown. You have to you find what the students know, then you build a bridge to what they don't know. It's something new they never heard before. And then they can understand that. Then, if you've never heard something more, you build another bridge. It's the same here. In math, 1 plus 1 equals 2. You can't just do 1 plus 1 equals 2. If you always start, you have 2 apples. You see 1 apple? How many apples is that? 1. That's 1 apple. What does that mean? You call it an apple? I want to eat 1. No. If the name of the thing is apple, there's only 1 of them. Okay? Now I'm going to get an orange. How many oranges are there? Only 1. If I eat an orange, now I don't eat oranges. They're separately, they're 1. But when I combine them, there's 2 things. Now I'm going to teach you about 1 plus 1, 2, 3, and all the way through. Then I have something else. Then I learn about subtraction. When you take away 1, there's 2 left. How many left? You have 2, then you take away 1, you have 1 left. And you build all the way through that, using that, and you add more and more concepts. It's hard. There's new things you can't just jump to new things. You have to connect with what they do now and build from there. I remember when TJ was doing homeschool with me. They asked Ms. Schaefer, what are we going to teach him? Let's test him and find out what he does now and what he doesn't know. So I took let him take the computer, and he knew about math. He went to 9th grade. He couldn't do English. He was behind in English, like in 7th grade. So we fixed it, and we got caught up, and he was all the way through. And he graduated. If I missed, you can't just You have to go through different numbers. You have to know higher English, higher math. It depends on the school. In the world, there's different views of politics. We don't know what we're talking about, so I didn't know what they were talking about, so I went to Google and I typed into Google the shutdown, and they give you different information about it. They gave you basic terminology, then you looked at more articles. If I looked at the huge words and all that stuff, I would not be able to understand it. So I started at the basics and I went forward from there. And that way I understood everything more clear. If I just went for the big stuff and everything that was so confusing, I would be confused. Some of these things about heaven, Jesus tried to show, he tried to, but he knew that you couldn't do it, couldn't understand it. So he used parables to help us understand something. If we look at the story, we can jump. We understand. You tell the story and then you explain what it meant. What was his point? For example, story before. There was a man, he killed a lot of people. He was very awful. And he went to court. And the evidence against him proved that he was guilty. And the jury, they decided to hang him. He was clearly guilty. So they were ready to hang him. And the judge decided on the day, like November 3rd. So he went ahead and one of the people objected and he said, yeah, this man did something wrong, but I'll switch places with him. The judge asked him, why? You did nothing wrong. I felt very sorry for him, the man said, and I'm willing to switch places with him, but you did nothing wrong. I want to do this. Really, the judge said. All right, well, let me talk to the man, the guilty. And the man that was condemned actually like, wow. And he accepted it gladly and he walked away free. And the man that replaced him took his place and actually died. Well, what's the picture? What's the point of this story? This man, he did nothing wrong. The man who did wrong, this man who was innocent, he felt sorry for him. And the same true with Jesus. You did something wrong. You killed people. You have sinned. Jesus, he said, no, I'll take their place. And I'll die in their place. I'll take it. They deserve it. That's okay. I'll take their place. These people, how they heard about this and they accepted Jesus as their paying their penalty. It's clear, this story, this man, the court found this man guilty, but he walked away free. And that's the point of the parables. So they understand the truth better. If I understand what the parable is, then I can understand what the point is being made. So next week, we'll look at Matthew chapter 13. Well, this week we'll look at Matthew chapter 13. And the word we're going to look at is sower and seeds. You know, the man that went, a sower is seeds. He went to throw seeds. It's a very famous parable. Jesus knew about this man that he didn't tell the name of the person, but he gave the example about how man went sowing seeds. If you read the story, you might do you want to enjoy this little story about it's not a bedtime story. Jesus gave them a story, and told them why. There's a purpose behind each ground, or each story. That's what we're going to look at later. So, can you imagine Jesus telling 46 parables? You know how many there were? Maybe 1, 2, or 3? We don't know. There's about 46 parables in the New Testament. I know a few of them, maybe 12 of them. There's still 46 more. There's still 46 in all. Many of them are famous. These parables are famous, so they're well known. Others are not so well known. We're going to cover a few of them to help you understand what's going on. So next time we see the story, this parable, and we know what, so we can understand it better. Do you have any questions? Sometimes we look about a story, sometimes we don't understand what's going on. What God is trying to teach us, so we look at these stories and we try to understand, and we have a better understanding. Sometimes somebody will come to me, like they'll ask me what it means, what something means, and they look. I would start talk with them and find out what they do know, and it would give that example to help them understand what was going on inside to something that was happening. Like, wow, to help them understand better. You remember 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 16 and 17 says, all scripture is given by the inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God might be furnished to all good works. God gave us these parables to help. Do we know much about the parables? No. But it'll help us understand what's going on. It's to help us have a stronger relationship with God. Sometimes we read these stories and we jump. They're hard to understand, so we skip them. And we skip many of them. We should really